It's a real pleasure to welcome Eric Shanks, CEO, and Zach Fields, SVP Graphics and Technology at Fox Sports. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about how Fox Sports uses real-time technology and the Unreal Engine to push the boundaries of their broadcast experience and storytelling. Eric and Zach, it's great to have you with us for the Unreal Build broadcast live events. And I know so many people are going to be really excited to hear more about innovation and the way you've been driving Fox Sports using real-time technology. Eric, as the CEO of Fox Sports, can you tell us a little about your role?
Sure. Well, as the CEO, you kind of get to decide your day sometimes. And so as much as possible, I spend my day working on production, either preparing for a season or in the season. Just like any other job, you're dealing with negotiations and human resources and partners and everything else. So one of our colleagues here, Bill Richards, always says that he spends way too much time in meeting rooms rather than control rooms. And so I try to constantly balance that out a little bit.
And Zach, it's great to have you with us too. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as SVP Graphics and Technology at Fox Sports?
Sure. I'm underneath the creative services umbrella. So a lot of what my team does is really try to take these designs and put them into motion. So that's everything from building out things in real time, integrating data. And then the other part of my role is dealing with technology, as you mentioned. So it's, Eric could come up with some really cool, crazy idea, and how do you make that work? Sometimes it's us selling the idea to production. And other times, those are things that our producers bring to us, and, how do we solve those problems, challenges?
So Eric, why don't we start with you? Fox Sports has always been recognized as an innovation leader. Can you tell us a little about your mission and how this influences the way you think about business and specifically the experience you're trying to create for your audience?
Sure. Fox Sports, of all of our peers, we're the youngest. So we were only created in 1994, and we were literally born to do football. So no other network was specifically started to cover football. And so football is what we kind of live and breathe every day at Fox Sports, and we're the leader in football, whether it's NFL or college. And you combine those two, and we're the clear leader in America's favorite sport. So I'd say most of our time is spent around storytelling of football. Clearly, we have other jewel events like NASCAR and the Daytona 500, the World Series every year, the FIFA World Cup, both men's and women's every year. But it's probably football that is the originator of most of the innovation that we have here. And so a lot of that is about trying to show viewers, our fans, things they can't see on television. The announcers can describe what people are seeing. The cameras can point and shoot and show you exactly what everybody in the stands is seeing. But our mission and our goal, we always have found at Fox Sports, is to bring people closer to the game they love. But a lot of that is through technologies and storytelling and showing them what they can't see. And that's where things like the yellow first down line came from. That's where the glowing puck came from. That's where the pointers on NASCAR came from. Things that they can't see, and the technologies that help us show those things are what we really gravitate towards. And, kind of they've been the foundation of almost everything that we've done at Fox Sports for the last 28 years.
Okay. Well, Zach, what are the big trends you're seeing in the sports broadcast industry? And how is this impacting your strategy in terms of content creation and audience engagement?
It's to just expand on what Eric's saying. It kind of ties in, and how do you kind of show things that the viewer wouldn't normally see? One of the things that we were just talking about before we started was drones, and how advanced they've become, and the different angles you can get, the different shots you can get, and how good these pilots are. And they're really creating a new a new form of creativity within production. In terms of graphics, Eric mentioned the yellow line. It's real-time graphics. I mean, we're not talking today without real-time graphics. And so, using those tools, whether it is in AR, whether it's a virtual set, we're starting to get into other areas of, design and animation. I think those are two examples, I think, that, you're really seeing expand throughout the industry.
So Eric, reimagining the NASCAR franchise, it was such a major milestone in the sports broadcast world. How did the vision for that come about?
Well, we acquired the NASCAR rights around 2000, and our first race was in 2001, so about 20 years ago. I wasn't running the company at the time. I actually think I had Zach's job at the time in 2001, and so don't get any ideas. And the group that did sign the deal, David Hill, Ed Gorin, Larry Jones, Bill Brown, the story goes that they shook hands with NASCAR, and it was, the third big sport that Fox Sports had ever gotten. And they were in the elevator on their way down from closing this big deal at Fox Sports. And David looked around the elevator and said, "Has anybody ever been to a NASCAR race?" And no, they hadn't been. So we acquired the rights without ever having been at a NASCAR race. At that point, David and all the others really poured themselves into watching every broadcast they could and going to every race that they could to find all of the new angles, all of the new technologies to help people, to help Fox actually craft the new NASCAR on Fox. And so how do we do that? I think one of the ways that we realized people had a problem approaching the sport as a new fan was you don't know who's in what car. There are numbers on the side of the car. They're kind of hard to see. You don't really know, but you can't see the names like a jersey number on the back. So we said, how can we make the sport more approachable? Well, how about being able to have real-time graphics that stick to the cars that show you what drivers are in what car so that you always felt like you knew who was passing who and who was in the lead and how fast they were going with real-time telemetry. That was just really kind of one, but the biggest example, I think, of what Fox brought to NASCAR. And it not only made the sport more approachable for new fans, which we needed to do, but also made it more sticky, I think, for the existing fans. Because we could do, once you have that ability to stick something on the screen and track it, you can do so much more. It's limitless. And I think that's what made NASCAR on Fox more engaging and more approachable, as well as, a lot of the 3D recreations that really nobody else was doing at the time, showing things that you couldn't see, like wind. We were the first ones in Daytona to show actual, in AR, how the wind was blowing down the backstretch and tracking it with camera angles, or doing real-time 3D cutaway cars that Larry McReynolds could actually interact with. So all of those things, when you start from scratch and are reimagining, you're only limited by how you can show things on the screen, really.
And Zach, what was the role of the Unreal Engine with this vision?
So the Unreal Engine is obviously more recent. As Eric was mentioning, NASCAR is unique. NASCAR offers a lot of opportunity just based on how much data is there. So stemming from, once you are trying to track all the cars, well, in order to actually put the pointers on, you need to be able to track all the cars, right? And then get all the data out of it. So over the last 20 plus years, NASCAR has really grown in terms of supplying us this amount of data. And so it kind of lends itself to technology. And a few years back, we had seen some demos of virtual set technology and felt it was kind of at a point that, okay, this is ready. It's not a green screen or, someone in front of a drape like it was in the past, just standing over some graphics. So you could interact. You could have a really large scale set. That was something we didn't want it to appear like you're in a small space. You're in a room, because that's where green screen helps you. Is okay, we want to make a small set feel bigger. It was, we want this to feel grand. We want the talent to be able to interact with it. We want to be able to give them new tools for analysis. And so in our explorations, once we had found that, you know what, this is kind of ready, that's when we decided to dive in, come up with a new NASCAR set, and really, start using this every single day to tell stories.
And Eric, what's been the audience response to this type of immersive storytelling?
Yeah, the audience doesn't write us letters saying how great our graphics are, right? And they don't write us letters saying how great our stories are. What they do respond to is our talent. And you can have the best graphics in the world, you can have the best audio in the world, you can have the best camera angles in the world. If they don't like your talent, and if your talent doesn't buy into helping you tell those stories, then none of it matters. And so I would say, because we spend, I think every network is really proud of the family that they've put together, but I think we're especially proud of the fact that we have a culture here that is very talent-focused, very analyst-driven, and we work with the analysts on telling those stories. Zach spends a ton of time with our top lead analysts crafting the technology and the graphics to match their voice. And if you don't do that, then it's going to fall flat, and people at home aren't going to be engaged. So to that extent, I think what we find is, the entire package that Fox Sports puts on the air, I think we're really proud of, and we think it's more engaging than anybody else that's out there, no matter what sport we're doing. And so, I think the audience feedback is great, but I don't think you don't get letters saying how great your graphics are, do you?
You might get the alternative somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere online.
Your graphics are terrible. I can't read them. Yeah.
But yeah, we don't get the letters. Just to expand on what Eric was talking about with the talent, as he mentioned, it only works if they buy in. And that example, the NASCAR set in Charlotte, was exactly that. I mean, from the beginning, our concern was, how are they going to feel on a set, a giant green space that they're not used to? And they saw the potential, and so they dove right in. They were all for it, and they give tons of feedback, incredible ideas, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's been successful as well.
The first time I was down there, I went out on the set, and I expected them to get snow blindness, that they would just get lost because you have no depth in that studio. And they said that after about 15 minutes, they don't even notice they're on a green screen, that they're on a green set. All they notice is the talent. And so that's opened up the possibilities for the things that we're going to do here in Los Angeles, all the learnings that we had and the feedback from the talent in Charlotte for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And Zach, how do you see the improvements in visual quality and fidelity in the past few years changing how Fox Sports uses real-time technology to create content? And what are the new opportunities you see opening up because of that?
I think the difference in evolution is tremendous in terms of quality. We kind of touched on that a little bit. That was when we felt it's okay. It's at a good point to jump into a virtual set, and it's only gotten better. As you know, being with Epic, you've probably seen huge jumps in the last few years. And, we're reaping, the rewards from that. And we're going to try to expand and grow. And if that technology's there, we got to use it. And so that is, obviously, it's things that are continued with our virtual set. It's AR. But it's also, what else can we do with other designs? And, real time, it offers a lot of benefits for storytelling, which we've been talking about. And I think, when you combine that with, a heightened sense of realism, those stories become a lot more engaging and interesting to the viewers.
And Eric, how have you scaled and embedded the use of game engine technology across the business?
Well, I think that the scaling comes from two things, I think, is the commitment to it. I think if Zach and his team didn't have the support potentially of Epic to make it a success, then you're not going to scale it, right? You have to choose to scale before you actually do scale it. And so it's now in every facility that we have. And the producers are learning in their pre-production, a pre-season, figuring out what are the signature moments that we're going to make out of it. And then the other way that we're scaling it is on the road. It's much more difficult, obviously, on the road with calibration and making sure that it's ready to go on the air, and that for each individual environment, the graphic design matches the event and matches the venue. And so I think what has really been amazing to me, and I think the biggest reason why it can scale, is the calibration to cameras. I still don't understand how a computer and a pan and a tilt, and sometimes even without a pan and a tilt head, how a computer can learn an area and stick a graphic in there in frames and make it smooth. Like, I still don't understand that, and it's probably a good thing that I don't understand it, that we have people that do. But I think that in and of itself is the biggest reason that we can scale it, is because our biggest events are not in the studio. Our biggest events are on the road. And if you're gonna get that kind of signature element in your broadcast, you have to be able to do it on the road.
Right. And Zach, how do you see how Unreal has changed the way you think about content?
I think, a lot of it is how it will change in the future. So the things we mentioned, we've covered quite a bit, but I think when it will take the next level is when you start getting into, customization with viewers, and them beginning to, in the past it was, oh, I want to control my own cameras, and I want to look at this. And I remember talking to Eric about that years ago, and he goes, we had conversations about that, and people don't realize how good producers and directors are at telling those stories. But in terms of, layering content on top of that produced broadcast, I think is going to be incredibly interesting. So taking that camera data and that data that comes in, and how can someone, enhance their broadcast further? And I don't think it's as far away as, some might think. I think that's going to be really interesting and create some unique content.
And what are some of the benefits and changes introduced into your pipelines and workflows as a result of that?
So to be totally honest, some of it is we're constantly evolving. We are trying to figure out other ways to utilize, we create a lot of pre-rendered animations, really good 3D, very polished designers. And how do we get them up to speed so that, some of these rendered animations could be done, in real time? And what are the benefits there? And so it's not just AR, it's also some of the more traditional design elements. And that's helping not only in render time, but then customization. If you've created a really unique storytelling graphic, and someone wants to, alter it a little bit for the next game, which is 2 different teams and different players, to be able to change those quickly is advantageous, especially when we're dealing with multiple crews. So if you got 7, 8 crews out on an NFL weekend, you can provide them higher quality content.
So, Eric, how is it helping to change the way you create narratives and tell stories?
Well, I don't think it's changed the way that we create the stories. I think the stories create themselves. Like, we sit in production meetings, and the stories are the stories, and the stories are told by the talent. It's how we support the stories, I think, that has changed. And I think it's the speed to which an idea can come out of a production meeting and then get on the air. You used to have to have multiple days, then it was a day, and now it's basically real time, that you can come up with elements, really good elements, to support the stories. And they just look better. That we can see the evolution of going from, when we used to have hockey, our hockey X's and O animations used to just be pyramids and I think like squares. We couldn't actually put real characters into an animation, and that was only, 15 years ago maybe. And within 15 years, we can basically put on, a PS5 game, from here with floating right over this area right here, interacting with talent. I think those are the things that have created is the supporting mechanism for how we tell the stories. It's not the actual stories itself, because again, what really comes through in the medium that we have is just people talking to people. It's how we fill that time in between that has just gotten so much better.
Yeah, and I think, one thing Eric talked about, how we strive to innovate, but at the root of it, it's telling stories. It's not trying to use the technology just to use it. It's how to use it to support and tell those stories, really.
And how would you say that Unreal is helping you create more engaging and immersive audience experiences?
Some of it's I talked about. I think what's coming in the future and how that will help. But years ago, I think 5-6 years ago on this field, for our NFL studio show, we created a table where we diagram plays and the talent would break it down, and the quality wasn't good enough, so we created almost like little avatars, and we would recreate the plays, and it was very engaging and informative, but we sort of had to dumb down the creative, and I think now it's it's the complete opposite. It's the creative is so good, like, give me the data. How much more is there? What else can we do with it? Whatever sport it is, that data is out there.
And Eric, what's the impact for your sports presenters and anchors? How have they found the transition to virtual and real-time environments?
Yeah, I think every talent is a bit different, and some of them take to it faster than others. It started talent interacting with technology. It started with probably the telestrator back in the day. If you remember when the telestrator first launched, it was before Fox Sports even existed, 30 plus years ago. The talent weren't allowed by union rules to use the telestrator. So John Madden would be standing in his booth, and to be able to draw a circle in real time, he would have to ask somebody else to do it, which wasn't really real time. There was a point then where John actually convinced the union that he should have an exemption to be able to do that. And John Madden was the only talent in the entire country that had the exemption to have that telestrator pin, to be able to do that. And ever since then, that marked the beginning really of talent interacting with technology. And today, we have talent that really literally stand in a green studio all day, and you would never know it. And I think the viewers at home have gotten accustomed to knowing that it's not real, but still buying in to it. And then you have our kind of game analysts that, again, I think you've seen over the course of the time that Fox Sports has been around, talent really taking ownership over the tools and driving the tools to a certain extent, whether it's the tools that they control or the tools down in the truck. But I think that the pace of advancement in that area, it's picked up a lot. I think it still has a lot of room to grow as we get into more virtual with talent and AR with talent.
Yeah, I think it really helps too in terms of synergy. And Eric's right. The ones that can see it and buy in and contribute, and you interact with, you see the gains right away. So whether it's dealing with Joel Klatt, our lead college football analyst, and he came to me and said, you know what, I want this telestrator to be, I want it to do this, this, and this. How do we do that? What's out there? And so that goes back, sometimes ideas are, given to us, and there's a challenge there, and how do we solve it? But when they're engaged and involved in that conversation, and they just want to utilize something to tell their story, the end result is that much better.
So that kind of leads us to, what do you think in 5 years' time, how will game engine technology help to shape this? Eric, start with you.
I think there's going to be a lot of ways, but I think it's going to rely on the convergence of the everything that we've talked about, which is the real-time ability to put graphics anywhere you want, in the right perspective, in the world that you want, telling the story that the talent wants to tell, but layer on top of that AI. The fact that the machine is going to know what you want before you want it, and what that's going to then do is allow you to create all of those multiple variations for fans at home. So AI for you with the technology that we're talking about in real time is going to be different than the AI for me. You may still be watching on a flat screen. I may be watching through AR glasses, and my TV might be floating here. I think it's much closer than you think. I mean, we've probably all been through the Magic Leap demo, right? And that's now 2 or 3 years removed, right? Think about where we're going to be in the next 5 years. We still have a long ways to go with, I think, capturing the data to be able to put it through that type of system. But I think the AI is going to be there very, very quickly. But with all of those extra feeds or potential added feeds, the one thing that I think needs to be constant is the best audio. So sometimes you go to these other feeds and either the audio quality or the announcers are not, they're not the best because they're not doing the main feed. If you can get Joe and Troy's audio with our best audio, along with those other feeds that might just be slightly customized for you, I think that's going to be a big portion of what we're going to see different in the next 5 years.
So Zach, looking ahead, what excites you most when it comes to real-time technology?
So someone that works in the technology space, you see things evolve very quickly. And I think what Unreal has done is, Epic is essentially leaders in that space. And so, as soon as we think we might have a handle on what something could be, there's another iteration or potential to do that much more. And so from a creative standpoint, I'm really excited to see how realistic can things look, and how quickly can you turn things around. But there's just things that would take so long in the past, being able to do them real time and have customizations and adapt quickly, that's exciting.
What are some of the challenges and barriers to overcome when using real-time technology?
Complexity, I think. You can do so much. And so because of that, it's how do you make sure you have the right people that, can not only create the content, but program the content, create all the logic that needs to happen, tie all the pieces together is challenging. And some of it is, we're learning, we're new in the space too. I mean, we've been doing it for, let's say, 5 years. We've been involved with Unreal Engine, but still I consider ourselves new to it and always learning. And so the challenge of creating a workflow and a pipeline for us is something that, it's ever evolving. And so, we're excited for that. But, there's also some challenges to it. And those are the things that, for us, we need to really figure out.
So, Eric, do you see opportunities for crossovers with other industries and content formats such as gaming?
Yeah, I think the kind of original crossover was into advertising. I mean, we've used a lot of our intellectual property assets and graphics like Cletus, our robot that we've taken not only from NFL but into other sports. And Cletus has been a centerpiece figure of Super Bowl advertising campaigns. We've created 3D animations in real time that our talent would interact with for a lot of our Super Bowl commercials. I think what you're seeing now is that crossover into gaming. And so, for example, during the pandemic even, we racked up, I think, the top 5 esports broadcasts on television with our virtual NASCAR events with our partner iRacing. And so that event, actually, a lot of people might have tuned in and not known that it wasn't an actual NASCAR race, except that then you see the drivers in a virtual rig driving on the virtual racetrack. And then you're seeing things like the NFL's integration into Fortnite, NASCAR itself just did a Rocket League integration, which I've seen the stills of, but I haven't seen my kids play at home yet, so I can't wait to go home and see that. So I think there clearly is, and I think now people are doing it just in a much smarter, sustainable way, because the graphics and the technology allow for those brands to be integrated into the environments in ways that the users buy off on.
And I think that's, the common denominator is obviously, a gaming engine. And so because of that, you're seeing a lot more industries use, and there is crossover. I mean, I've had conversations with architecture firms that, I would have never spoken to before, but, that we're using a gaming engine as well. And so, to Eric's point, whether it's, a simulation game, whether it's, the Rocket League, there are a lot of conversations happening behind the scenes between different industries.
So thank you. This has been a great conversation. Eric, Zach, it's been great to have you part of the Unreal Build broadcast and live events. It's been fascinating to learn more about how Fox Sports is using Unreal and real-time technology to innovate the broadcast experience and tell more immersive stories. And now, everyone watching today will be feeling really excited and inspired by the insights and perspectives you've shared.
Well, thank you, Connie.
Thanks, Connie.
Thanks for you and Epic and Unreal being such a great partner to us at Fox Sports.
Thank you.
Absolutely.